From Fox 8 Sports, this is Draft Game Plan, sponsored by Craig's Electrical and Generator Service. When the lights go off, Craig's comes on. And Fleet Supply Warehouse, getting the job done. It's what we do.
With the 29th pick in the 2023 NFL Draft, the New Orleans Saints select Brian Brzee, defensive tackle, Clemson.
The Saints added Brian Brzee to the trenches last season. Might they address that area again in this year's NFL Draft? Welcome to Draft Game Plan with Sean Vazan. I'm Juan Kincaid.
Juan, mock draft season over. The real thing will be here tomorrow night. The Saints have 9 picks in this year's draft. We both know, though, that can change. But as of now, it all starts with the 14th overall selection Thursday night.
If there's one overall truth about the 2024 NFL Draft, Saints general manager Mickey Loomis believes it's this.
I think it's a good year for offensive players. That's probably the way I'd put it. A little better, offensively than defensively.
Lucky for the Saints, their biggest need is on that side of the ball, specifically at offensive tackle, where huge holes remain with the uncertainty surrounding Ryan Ramczyk's health and Trevor Penning's development, plus James Hurst's unexpected retirement. Some potential options that could be available at 14 are Penn State's Olu Fashanu, Oregon State's Talise Fuaga, and Washington's Troy Fautanu. But Loomis insists the team will remain true to their board and not deviate too far from their grades just to fill a need, especially in the first round.
We're not gonna vary. It's not gonna be. It might be 2, but they might be. Just because you have 2 magnets doesn't. In some years they're going to be right next to each other. They really should be side by side. In some years there's going to be a gap. We haven't picked anybody where there was a gap, to fill a need.
Speaking of gaps, there's a huge one in the Saints draft board. After their second-round pick at 45, they don't have another one until the 5th round at pick 150. Trading down makes sense to grab a few picks to help fill that gap, but it's not something the Saints have done in a really long time.
I think there are cases where dropping back makes some sense to get more picks. I just think in our case, most of the time, it's just been a move too far back. And, if you move back 2 or 3 or 4 spots, probably the level of player is similar. If you're moving back, 8 to 10, I think oftentimes you're dropping down a class. If you believe in your board, you believe in the evaluations that your staff have done, then it's just hard for me to grasp getting a lesser player talent-wise.
Loomis added the idea of using a few of their 4 fifth-round picks to go up the round is a possibility, and they'll be open to any and all options. But first things first is Thursday's first round, where at pick 14, Loomis believes his team is in a good spot.
Yeah, I do. I think we're going to get a really good player, yes.
Always happy to welcome back Jeff Duncan from NOAA.com and the Times-Picayune. Mickey Loomis talking today to the media, the annual presser where he says a lot but doesn't really say much. But some things stood out to you today. What?
Yeah, I thought the thing that stood out first of all was he admitted they've got some musts that they still haven't filled on the roster. That's very unusual for this time of year. Usually the Saints' method of operations going into the draft is have all those top priorities filled so you can just take the best player available. But today he said they still have multiple musts that they still need to address. Obviously, one of them is tackle. It'd be interesting to know what the rest of them are, but I thought that was a little eye-opening. Shows you just how far along how far they've got to go with this roster to get ready for the season opener.
I thought there was an interesting non-answer when it came to Marshawn Lattimore's future with the club. Said he's confident he'll be with the team, but also said everyone is tradable, everyone, depending on what the offer could potentially be. Still take that for what it's worth when it comes to Marshawn Lattimore's future with the club. There were a couple of other things. I don't think I've ever heard him verbalize specifically the way he did today about why he hasn't traded back in years past. Basically saying every offer he has gotten in years past to trade back has been too far back, and he felt like it would be a lesser player to do that. It makes sense. I just never heard him say that before. In some ways, he was the same old Mickey pre-draft press conference, but in other ways, he was oddly specific in things that I was genuinely curious about.
So let's talk about the draft for a second and the team's needs. They have 9 picks, so there's some stuff there to work with. But does it feel like to you that this needs to be an instant impact draft?
Well, I think it's certain positions, Juan. I mean, obviously tackle is the most glaring need this team has. I would say in the years I've covered the team since '99, dating myself a little bit here, this is the most glaring need the Saints have ever had entering a draft. I mean, they don't need just one tackle.
Yeah.
They potentially need two. And he was really honest about that. I think he pretty much basically said, yeah, we've got to get a tackle in this draft. But I think it's going to be hard to get multiple impact players because they don't have the ammo. They only have 2 picks in the top 149, the 2 picks in the top 4 rounds. It's going to be hard to find impact talent lower in this draft. You talk to analysts, they say it's not a deep draft at all. Not a lot of junior eligible players in this draft. So I don't know if they can do that in this draft other than maybe those first 2 picks.
Exactly. I think that's where you're at with this is you can get some impact. Instant impact, I think, is going to come from those first 2 players. And if you can get instant impact from 2 guys, I think that can certainly help this year. When I say instant impact, regular contributor and or starter, maybe a little bit more than what you got out of last year's class, other than say maybe Brian Brzee. But unless you're able to get some kind of ammunition to get somewhere in that top 150, 125, which is going to be hard to do with the way the board is stacked up, although they could possibly do it. I just don't think they're going to have the quantity of players, quality football players, to have such a big instant impact class, much like 2017, which was the secret to everything. They had 6 picks in the top 100 picks that year. They don't have that this year, so it's going to be harder to have a bigger instant impact class as a whole. When you have 9 selections and 7 of them are after pick 150.
It remains to be seen what Trevor Penning's impact will be on this team next season. He could kind of pretty much impact how they go in the draft, but can they really afford to look past tackle with the first pick, maybe the first 2 picks?
Well, I think the only way they look beyond there, Juan, is if all those tackles go off the board ahead of them, and then some of the premium positions or a premium player drops down to them, you just can't pass up. I mean, if Malik Neighbors is there, for instance, or Marvin Harrison Jr.,
gosh, yeah.
you almost have to take that player and then address your tackle need later. But I don't think that's going to happen. I really think this year with 5 tackles graded in the top 20 by a lot of analysts, someone in that group is going to be available at 14.
Yeah, it's going to test their highest graded versus need theory, which has always been highest graded. Generally, highest graded is a cluster of players in a highest graded tier that they can pick from. Ty obviously would certainly go to the need. I think it's more than likely going to happen, but if they were to bypass tackle in the first round, say if Brock Bowers was available at tight end at 14, and maybe they like him, maybe they don't. If they were able to, if he was available, I could see them potentially going after a player like that. And also this, if they were to bypass tackle in the first round, there is no doubt about it. They're going to try to figure out a way to trade up in the second round to get the must position at the tackle position. They're not going to let it linger to pick 45.
All right, we'll leave it there for just a second. Much more with Jeff in just a bit as we get his thoughts on the Saints and their quarterback room. If the front office is done adding to that room, stay with us.
Greg's Electrical and Generator Service and Fleet Supply Warehouse.
Welcome back into the show. We know all the potential draftees will have their eyes glued to the TV set this weekend, hoping to hear their name called.
But what about current Saints players? How much attention do they pay to what's happening in rounds 1 through 7? Here's Madeline Adams.
On Thursday night, Saints tight end Juwan Johnson and quarterback Derek Carr will be doing the same thing as many Saints fans and football fans across the country, watching the 2024 NFL Draft.
I mean, it changes everybody's life. I mean, that's for the most part. But, obviously, whoever we get, I'm always excited to, work. And obviously, we're always getting better. So I'm just excited who we get and time to get to it.
I always watch the draft. And again, just as a player, like, anybody you get, you're just so excited for that player. And you're excited for everybody, really, because, that moment's life-changing, and it's life-changing for your family, for your community, where you're from, all those things. And that's a cool thing.
Last year's draft was extra special for Carr when the Saints selected a quarterback he'd been mentoring, Jake Haener, who also played at Fresno State, just like Carr.
I'm texting Jake like, bro, it might, and we get him, and it's like, how cool is that? So there's some really cool moments like that happen that you can only dream of, right? And hopefully we'll be able to do that again with some more guys this year.
Saints cornerback Alontae Taylor says he doesn't pay too much attention to the NFL draft, but just like Carr, he understands what a life-changing week it is.
You know, super excited for those guys wherever they go. I just want them to know, like, you know, take that opportunity and run with it. And whoever's coming here, just know that they're coming into an organization that we're still building, right, and we're still getting better, but we're going to be right where we need to be on time.
Part of getting better includes the heightened level of competition that comes with adding new players to a roster.
That's what you want, though, right? You want that competition. You want that fire up underneath you to keep you going every single day. And, you know, one thing I always will tell anybody who's coming into the league is, you know, you got to fight for your job every single day. It's not one of these things where you're guaranteed. You go to college, right? You're probably guaranteed 4 years at that school. But in the NFL, man, every single day you're fighting for your position. And, you know, that's what you want. You want that competition. And that's just going to make us a better team at the end of the day.
Covering the Saints for Game Plan, I'm Madeline Adams.
All right, back here with Jeff Duncan. Saints quarterback room is now 5 deep if you include Taysom Hill. Is there room for one more, Jeff?
Very unlikely. I mean, for the most part, you're not going to take 5 quarterbacks to camp, so you'd have to cut somebody. I think the signing of Kellen Mond pretty much eliminated that need. Kellen Mond's a guy that's worked with Clint Kubiak and the offensive staff previously. I think they brought him in for a reason, to give them an experienced backup to compete behind Derek Carr. You never say never. If somebody drops there, say in the lower rounds, that they have graded very highly, they can't pass them up. Yes, they might use a late pick on it, but for the most part, I think this is the group they're going to take to camp.
You have confidence in any of these guys to be the backup behind Carr outside of Taysom?
Well, I think, but they moved on from Jameis Winston. I mean, I think that certainly showed you that they have high confidence, or enough confidence, in Jake Haener that he can at least compete to be the number 2 quarterback. Nathan Peterman is certainly a guy that's been around the league for a long time, and you mentioned Kellen Mond is another guy. And they also have the experience of Taysom Hill. You can't forget about Taysom Hill because he's still technically listed as a quarterback. So, yeah, I think I think there is confidence that Haener can become that guy, or any one of these guys can become that guy, but it's got to be through a genuine competition. None of these guys should just be handed the number 2 job. It's got to be earned, won through a competition, which we'll see in training camp. You mentioned something there. They wouldn't take 5 quarterbacks or 6 quarterbacks to training camp. I'm wondering how they're going to divvy up 4.
Right.
Get all the reps to 4 quarterbacks. That's a lot of reps to distribute. You need... Sometimes it's hard to distribute those reps, so I wonder if there's going to be some movement even before we get to training camp.
What if a guy with a first-round grade falls to the second round?
Not in the second round, no. I don't think
Trevor Pennick.
You're talking about an offensive quarterback?
No, quarterback, yeah.
No, I can't see that.
Okay.
I can't see them investing highly at quarterback when they have so many other needs right now.
Au contraire, my friend. Look, if you have a first-round graded prospect at quarterback, that's the only spot I would consider it. Second round at pick 45, and the 26th grade prospect happens to be a quarterback, and you think that player can be a starter at some point, and it might be worth it if you've already taken care of your tackle need in the first round. You couldn't bypass the tackle to get a quarterback. Yeah. But if he's that far high up on your grades, on the prospect chart, whatever the case may be, and he can be a potential starter, I'm done with the day 3 backup thing. To me, if you see a guy who has potential starter material, then perhaps it might be worth the risk.
Is there a second-year player the organization needs to have a big year this coming season?
Well, we mentioned Isaiah Foskey. I do think he has to take a step forward. It's a guy didn't really get on the field much at all last year, but not really. I mean, I think Brian Brzee obviously is a guy that needs to become more of a playmaker. We saw some flashes from him last year, but that's an area this team needs to get better at, and he needs to get better as far as run stopping. I mean, that's a big weakness on this team. So, look, I was not as high on Brian Brzee last year as a lot of other people. I think a lot of people felt like he had a boffo rookie year. I thought he was very inconsistent. I need to see more from him, considering where they drafted him.
I thought he was the best of a rookie class that was overall pretty below average in their production, at least in year 1. For me, I was surprised when we talked about it. You said Isaiah Foskey. Totally agree there, especially when we talk about edge pass rushing and development from year 1 to year 2. I'll throw another name out there, though. Nick Saldiveri is a guy that's kind of getting forgotten a little bit in the offensive line depth, hierarchy of the depth there. If he can somehow stay healthy and hopefully make that jump from year 1 to year 2 where he's competing to be an interior lineman, maybe you can have something there, at least in terms of depth along your offensive line. That's another guy that I think maybe we're not really talking much about, but potentially if he can somehow develop, maybe he sneaks up on some people.
Saints have 9 picks total in this draft, but 7 picks from rounds 5 through 7. How many of those picks do they keep? And might they package something to move up to the 3rd or 4th round since they have nothing there?
Well, I think they try to do that.
Of course, yeah.
But you have to, it takes 2 to tango on. This draft, as I said before, is not a deep draft, so there's not much value to those picks. who's going to want to trade for lower round picks in this draft when most of those players probably aren't graded high enough to make your roster? That's the problem. I think their best avenue is to try and find a team that has very few picks overall. Maybe you package some of those fifth-round picks to a team that may only have 4 picks in this draft and is willing to take a few more darts and throw it against the board. Otherwise, I don't think they have much value this year. Maybe what you do is trade out of it for next year, a higher pick in a future year, because more than likely those 6th, 7th rounders this year aren't going to make your team.
Mickey basically said as much. He said, we got 4 fifth-round picks. Maybe we could package a few of those to bump up a couple spots, maybe in the back half of the 4th round. It's all about scenarios. It's all about the situation. It's all about the board, what you have available, what the team you're calling, what do they have on their board, who they believe could still be available, the value that they have to those particular prospects. We talked about it earlier, but the idea of trading back from the 2nd round to maybe fill that gap in the 3rd and 4th round, to me, is enticing, but they've never done it in a really, really, really long time. So I think they want to get in that 3rd and 4th round hole somewhere. I just am very curious to see how they end up doing it, because I know that's what they want to do, but wanting to do it and actually doing it are 2 different things.
Real quickly, about 30 seconds. Is there pressure on Mickey and Dennis to get these early picks on the field and productive right away?
Oh, huge pressure. Pressure on the entire organization. They've got to turn this thing around. A lot of people, anecdotally, fans, very discouraged right now. I think they've got to start delivering some hope to the fan base, or we could see some empty seats in the dome for the first time in a long time.
It's time to hit on a draft class. I think it is, at least a couple of players within a draft. So pressure, yeah, I think especially externally. Internally, I don't always get the feeling that Dennis Allen's under as much pressure as maybe you think on the outside. But nonetheless, they got to win more games. And obviously the draft helps them win more games, because of another year of mediocre play, it's just not going to taste right. And then if you somehow roll out and you're 4-13 or 3-14, I don't see how you can run it back with another year of Dennis Allen in that regard.
Okay, we'll leave it there with Jeff Duncan. Jeff, thank you once again. We'll see you very, very soon. All right, coming up on Draft Game Plan, we'll catch up with LSU head coach Brian Kelly. How long will it take for his former quarterback, Jaden Daniels, to hear his name called on draft night? Same goes for former Tulane signal caller Michael Pratt. What day will he find his new NFL home? We'll talk about both when we come back.
This is Draft Game Plan, sponsored by Craig's Electrical and Generator Service and Fleet Supply Warehouse.
Welcome back in. The consensus is a quarterback will be taken #1 overall in this year's draft.
But which quarterback is debatable? And around these parts, only one guy is worthy of being the top overall pick. LSU's Jaden Daniels. Here's Garland Gillen.
The wait is almost over. On Thursday night in Detroit, Jaden Daniels will finally find out where he'll be calling home in the NFL. The Heisman Trophy winner is a possibility at #2 to the Commanders or #3 to the Patriots.
Man, it's the same answer for everybody. It's whoever want to drive me, whoever believe in me. The stuff that I can't control. I can't control who, calling my phone on draft day. Who's going to invest in me? Who's going to believe in me? Kind of like LSU did on and off the field, as a man and a player. So I'll say that's kind of the biggest thing, but they probably already did our homework. They know who I am as a person and who I am as a player.
Daniels should see playing time early in his career at either team, though Daniels doesn't invest much time into where that could actually be.
I feel like I'll be ready. It's a learning curve for everything. I'm just ready, hear my name called and then go in there and just ready to learn and, meet my new teammates.
Coach Brian Kelly will be with Jaden Daniels at the NFL Draft in Detroit. Here at the Zurich Classic, he weighed in on his former star quarterback.
He has something that these other guys don't have, and that's the ability to escape with elite speed. And that can make a lot of offensive coordinators look good on third down because he can take a play that is not going well and it can have a good outcome. So he turns bad plays into good plays, and that's where he's different than everybody else.
Covering the NFL Draft, Garland Gillen, Fox 8 Local First.
So, Sean, here's all the offensive players that are draft eligible for LSU. Quarterback Jaden Daniels, he's the top guy, but don't sleep on Malik Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr., the receivers going in the first round. Running back Noah Cain, solid. Center Charles Turner, the third, also there.
Let's go to the defensive side. Defensive tackle, Makai Wingo. Defensive tackle, Mason Smith. Defensive tackle, Jordan Jefferson. Defensive lineman, Ovi Oguafu. And linebacker, Omar Spates. Cornerback, 7, not 6, Banks. And safety, Andre Sam.
Meanwhile, Tulane's got some players that expect to hear their names called this weekend, led by quarterback Michael Pratt. Viewed as a day 2 or early day 3 selection, one scouting summary of Pratt described him as a timing and rhythm passer that has the physical tools to become a reliable starter in the right NFL system.
How it can be an asset to the locker room, how it can be a leader, is the things that I think is really important, elevating the guys around you.
You look through the history, there's been quarterbacks, Sean King, JP, Patrick Ramsey. There's been guys play the position at a high level. But to put Tulane back on the map at the quarterback position, Mike Pratt's done a great job and really been a great representative of Tulane.
So Pratt's not the only greenie wanting to land on an NFL team right now. His receiver, Jaquan Jackson, guard Prince Pines, Sincere Haynesworth, the center, also looking to go. How about some defensive players, Sean?
Cornerback A.J. Hampton Jr., cornerback Jarius Monroe, and cornerback Lance Robinson.
Those Tulane players, always good NFL players if you can get them on your roster. All right, still ahead on Game Plan. We'll wrap up the show with our final thoughts on the draft, which kicks off on Thursday. Stay with us.
This is Draft Game Plan, sponsored by Craig's Electrical and Generator Service and Fleet Supply Warehouse.
Welcome back to the show. As we go down the stretch, don't forget to check out the latest Overtime podcast.
It's good.
Episode 507. The guy next to me, along with Andre Johnson
Jr.,
reveals Sean's latest mock draft, which features a player viewed as a generational offensive weapon. You can find this on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and wherever you listen and download your podcast. And before we get out of here, some final thoughts on the weekend in which every NFL team feels like they'll get better. How about the Saints?
Yes, they feel like they can get better. They clearly like their board. They're confident in their board. The Saints really need to find a couple of impact players, particularly with that 14th overall selection and hopefully that 45th overall selection in the second round. I am so curious to see who it ends up being.
7 picks after the 5th round. Got to move up a little bit. Remember, you can always get in touch with us by using the Final Word feature on the Final Play app. That's going to do it for us tonight. Thanks for watching Draft Game Plan, and thanks to everyone at Fox 8 for their contributions. Sean, take us home.
Our next newscast is at
4 o'clock in the morning.
Good night, everyone.
Wait, Sean. Good night, everyone.
From Fox 8 Sports, this has been Draft Game Plan, sponsored by Craig's Electrical and Generator Service. When the lights go off, Craig's comes on. And Fleet Supply Warehouse, getting the job done. It's what we do.